Hello, I am Ruby Falconer. This is a Shamanic Egyptian Astrological Update for the week of December 7th, 2020. We are in the middle of a portal. 1 week ago, on Monday, November 30th, we had a penumbral lunar eclipse in Gemini. 1 week from today, on Monday, December 14th, 2020, there will be a total solar eclipse in Sagittarius. Eclipses always come in pairs. Sometimes they come in threes. And the time between eclipses represents a transition from one period of experience to another. We left a phase of experience that began on July 4th when we exited the last eclipse portal, and that particular phase started on July 4th and ended on November 30th. It is all of a piece. It's a period. We had early in the year another period that happened when we exited an eclipse portal on January 11th, and that particular period completed itself on June 5th when we entered another eclipse portal. And if you look back over 2020, you can see that the springtime has been different than the fall, speaking in terms of the northern hemisphere, or the fall has been different from the spring if you live in the southern hemisphere. These are periods of experience that are connected with each other in some way, and they are separated by an eclipse portal, which is a time when we go through a tunnel, we go through a birth canal, we go through a transition, we go through a portal, we leave behind the experiences of the last period, and we prepare ourselves to enter the next phase. And when we're in that tunnel, which is where we are right now, we're right in the middle of it, we do not know what the next period is going to be like. You know, it's a little bit like when a snake sheds its skin. You know, a snake will rub itself up against a rock, or ideally even find two rocks, and push itself between those two rocks. It's kind of like a birth process, moving through a birth canal, and it scrapes that skin back. And it leaves that snake bloody, it leaves it blind. It needs to take some time before the new skin starts to develop again. And during that period, it's very vulnerable. It doesn't know what it's going to be like yet to have that new skin. And that's something that snakes need to do periodically, and so do we. And we have this collective period that we all go through, where we go through these eclipse portals, and we're shedding our skin. We're shedding the skin that we've worn since we exited the last portal, which in this case was on July 5th. And we've worn a certain sort of skin over the last almost 5 months, and now we're letting it go, and we're preparing for something new. We're allowing ourselves to feel exposed and vulnerable. Now, right now where we are, this is a 2-week eclipse period. We're right in the middle. We can see off in the distance, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's far away. We can turn around and look behind us, and we can see the light from the place that we went, but it's an equal distance away, and we're right in the middle in the darkness. So that's where we are right now. So during this time, during this particular session that we're doing today, you know, during this week, there are not a lot of astrological shifts. We don't have planets moving into new signs. We don't have big conjunctions or big aspects taking place during this week. It's all kind of very much tied up with being in between the worlds, so to speak, which is where we are right now. Well, we do have some very important things coming up. We will have, on December 16th, we will have the planet Saturn will enter Aquarius. And then a couple of days later, on the 19th, Jupiter is going to enter Aquarius. And then on the 21st, which is 1 week after we get out of the tunnel, we're going to have Jupiter and Saturn conjunct. And that is going to be on the day of the solstice, on December 21st. And that day is the official end, so to speak, of the Great Shift alignment, which has dominated 2020. It began when we exited that first eclipse portal of 2020. When we came out of that eclipse portal on January 11th, the next day on the 12th, we had an exact conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. Saturn in traditional astrology is the principle of contraction. It's Sobek, the old king, in Shamanic Egyptian Astrology. And Pluto is the lord of the underworld. He's the god of death and rebirth. He's Osiris in Shamanic Egyptian Astrology. He's the lord of regeneration. So those two aligned exactly. And they had been kind of dancing with each other throughout 2019, coming close to each other and then separating away, never coming to exact conjunction. That didn't happen until January 12th of this year. And then what made this year really important was Jupiter, the principle of expansion. Jupiter, Horus, the young king, came into alignment with the two of them. And all this year, that happened in March, all this year, we've had Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto dancing with each other, sometimes coming close to each other, sometimes separating out a little bit further from each other, but always in relationship. And that has been the great shift alignment of 2020. It's been in the sign Capricorn, which is Khnum in the Egyptian pantheon. Capricorn is the sign of structure. And so we have had, as I've said many times, the dismantling of the established structure, the dismantling of structure as we know it. And we've not yet formed a new structure. In the Egyptian pantheon, this is Khnum, who is a potter. Khnum creates the animals and the humans of earth, and he does it out of clay. He molds them on his potter's wheel. And what's important about Khnum is every time we go through a process of transformation and change, and it's certainly been going on in 2020, Khnum puts us back on his potter's wheel because we need a new Ka body. That's the energetic form. We need something new to hold changes in substance. So even though we can't see what the new form is yet, and we're still in the tunnel, we're in between the worlds, we can know that Khnum is doing his work. He's got us on his wheel, and he's forming something new for us, and we're almost to that point where the new form is going to come through. So what I want to offer today as a journey is I want to offer a journey with Sobek, the old king, and Horus, the young king. This is Saturn and Jupiter. Throughout the last several months, these two planets, they've been in relationship all year, but they've been coming very close to one another. And where I live on the east coast of the United States, I can go out just after dusk if it's clear, and I can look toward the southwest, and I can see these two amazing objects coming closer and closer and closer to each other. And at this point, on December 7th, 2 weeks from their exact conjunction, they are getting very close. And the apparent closeness, the closeness that we see with our naked eye, they're closer to each other than they've been in 800 years. And that has to do with what we astrologers call declination. All the planets move along the apparent path of the ecliptic. And because their orbits are not always static, sometimes they're a little above the plane of the ecliptic, sometimes they're below. It just happens that right now these two are very close to each other relative to that plane of the ecliptic. And that's their apparent path. They're not actually closer to each other in space. They're as far away from each other as they've ever been. That's not changing. But what's changing is our perception. And of course, our perception is important. Astrology is very much a language of perception. It's how we perceive things to be, how we experience them, which is not necessarily how they really are. So it's very important to kind of hold an awareness, not only of what we're perceiving. We can't forget to do that. We can't forget to go out and look at the night sky and see what a conjunction actually looks like. Because if you go out, if you're able to see Saturn and Pluto, and in most parts of the world you can see Saturn and Pluto. If you live in the southern hemisphere, it happens later at night for you. And you can look it up wherever you live to see when this conjunction is happening. But I really want to encourage people. I said this last week, but I'm saying it again. Over the next 2 weeks, take advantage of any clear nights. Go out and watch these two as they get closer and closer and closer to one another. when they come into exact conjunction, and these conjunctions only happen once every 20 years, they will be on the 0 degrees of Aquarius, the very first degree of Aquarius. So this is important for a number of different reasons. It's a conjunction that only happens every 20 years that, Jupiter actually finally catches up with Saturn. It is the resolution of the opposites. In the work that Linda Starwolf, who is my co-author and the co-creator of Shamanic Egyptian Astrology, and also the work that she did with Nikki Scully, the two of them created a book. It's called Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt, which Shamanic Egyptian Astrology is based on. And they also created an oracle deck. It's called the Anubis Oracle Deck, which is an amazing deck. In that work, they identify these two archetypes, Sobek and Horus, as the resolution of the opposites. And, in traditional Egyptian myth, Set, who is part of this has been part of this story, particularly in the last period of experience that we've been going through since August. Set has been very much a part of this story because the planet Mars has been moving through a square relationship with the Great Shift planets. It's kind of pulled back a little bit from that now. He's in a square relationship to Pluto, less so with Jupiter and Saturn, although it's still there. Set Mars is now direct. He was retrograde for a couple of months, still in his home sign in Aries, where he will remain until January. So Set's been very much a player, in this last phase of experience that we've been going through. Set and Horus get into a battle with one another, which goes on for hundreds of years, and it happens after Set kills Horus's father. He kills Osiris. Now, in one way of thinking about Sobek is the old king, Horus is the young king. So there is a kind of a metaphoric relationship between Set and Sobek. Set is the warrior king. Sobek is the king when he's old. And part of what happens with Sobek is he doesn't want to let go of his power. In traditional astrology, this is Saturn, the principle of constriction. He does not want to let go. He doesn't want to open up to new things. He doesn't want to cooperate with the young energy that's coming in. If you can see in your life or in our world any place where the elder energy is not wanting to cooperate with younger energy, with the enthusiasm and the new ideas of the younger generation and the younger energy, that's a Sobek and Horus dynamic. And, the thing about Sobek and Horus, if you look at them in traditional astrology, Saturn is constriction, Jupiter is expansion. One of the ways that I've always been able to identify them or understand them is that, we breathe in and our lungs expand, that's Jupiter. We exhale and our lungs contract, that's Saturn. And we can experience that. We can breathe in and we can breathe out. And we can experience that happening. And they have to both happen. We can't just breathe in and not breathe out. We can't just breathe out or not breathe in. I'm sure all of us have tried to do that at various times in our lives. It doesn't happen. Eventually, we have to, if we're alive, do the opposite. We have to let go of the breath or we have to take new breath in. These two have to work together. And there is a message there when we think about the resistance of Sobek, the old king, to the new energy of Horus, the young king coming in. There's a message that the two have to work together. Sobek has to respect and work with and train and teach and support the energy of the young king. And the young king has to be willing to listen to the wisdom and the experience and receive the teachings of the elder, of the older king. If either is not able to do this, then all they're going to do is fight with each other. There will be no reconciliation of the opposites. I think we can see this symbolism taking place in all kinds of ways in our world and perhaps in our individual lives. Now, another way of thinking about Saturn, Sobek, the old king, is he's our ego identity, which is invested in a certain way of being, and maybe doesn't want to let that way of being go, whether it's a job that we've done for a while and we don't want to let it go because we're afraid, I'll never get another job. Or maybe it's a relationship, or it's a place that we live, or it's a way of being in the world. And we're afraid to let it go because we don't know what's going to replace it. And so we resist expansion in our lives. We resist new life in our lives out of fear. So Saturn, Sobek, the old king, can hold that kind of energy. And it's the shadow side of him. There is a shadow side to Jupiter, Horus as well, which is you can see that in the myth of Icarus. Icarus is he and his father, this is a Greek myth, they make wings out of wax, and they want to fly to the sun. And so Icarus's father, Daedalus, says to him, you have to be careful. You can't fly too high, or the sun will melt your wings and you'll fall to the ground. So let's do this. Fly, young man, but don't fly too high. Let's be careful. And he has a rope that he's going to hold him so he doesn't fly too far. Well, Icarus doesn't want to listen. He wants to soar all the way up to the sun. And he doesn't listen to the words of wisdom from his father, and his wings are melted. And he does fall, and he does die. So, the message here is that these two need each other. They need to cooperate with one another, which is why Starwolf and Nikki, when they worked with these two archetypes in the Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt and the Anubis Oracle deck, they called their relationship the reconciliation of the opposites. And we are going to have, on December 21st, an opportunity to have a reconciliation of the opposites, to have simultaneously happening in our culture, in our world, on our planet, and within ourselves, an expansion and a contraction happening simultaneously, not in linear time, not a breathing in and an exhaling, but a moving out and a moving in at the same time. So what I would like to do today is I would like to offer a journey with Horus and Sobek. And I'm going to be referring to them a lot over the next 2 weeks. I truly hope that, as I said earlier, all of us will go outside and watch these two coming closer and closer to one another. When they finally come into conjunction, one's going to be higher than the other because their declination is not exact. But as I said earlier, that declination is closer than it's been in 200 years. So it's going to be an amazing sight to see. And there's a lot of the energy of this particular alignment is transmitted to us if we go out as much as possible and watch them, check in with them every night you can. Every night you have some clearness taking place in the place where you live. Go out and look at them. And if you don't know how to find them, invest in one of those phone apps that will help you find them. They're there in the southeast for the people who live in the United States, and it's kind of hard to miss because Jupiter is extremely bright, and Saturn is right to the east of Jupiter. So again, that's northern hemisphere. So they're hard to miss, and you watch them coming closer, closer, and closer. We could think of them as being in communion with each other instead of being in a battle. Okay? Instead of struggling with each other, those opposite things. I want to leave this job, but if I leave it, I'll never get another job. Of course, a lot of people are losing their jobs, right? I want to leave this relationship, or I want to change this relationship, but if I do, it's not going to work. I want to move somewhere else, but if I do, it won't work out well. Things will go badly. We come up with all the reasons why we can't open up to something new. We can't expand. That Saturn piece keeps us contracted while we still have that desire for expansion. There is an opportunity for a resolution. There's an opportunity for these two forces within ourselves to talk to each other, to support each other. Yes, let's expand, and don't forget this. Let's do it in a way where we can support this. It's in the very first degree of Aquarius. Aquarius is the visionary sign. We all have an opportunity to begin to manifest our visions, again, collectively as well as individually. I'm going to talk more in the time ahead about Aquarius and its Shamanic Egyptian archetype, which is Ptah, who's another creator god. But for right now, while we're still in the portal, let's begin to prepare ourselves for what it's going to mean to step out of this portal in with the Sagittarian total eclipse, the new moon, and then 1 week later with the solstice, step into this alignment, this coming together, this reconciliation of the opposites. So I want to invite you to take a nice deep breath. Exhale fully. Put your feet on the floor if you're sitting up. If you're lying down, get in touch with the support that you have beneath your body. If your feet are on the floor, feel the support of the floor beneath your feet, the chair that's supporting you, the bed or the couch, wherever you're sitting or lying. And feel the earth beneath the floor. Feel the support of Gaia. Feel gravity holding you to the surface of the earth. And take a nice deep breath. And I invite you to imagine that you are standing on an island in the middle of a river. Perhaps this is the river Nile. If you've been to Egypt and seen the river Nile, it's a big river. There is an expanse from one shore to the other, one bank to the other. So imagine that there's a island in the middle and you're standing on it. And you can see the river flowing past you. And on one side, one bank of the river, you see someone standing. This is Sobek, the old king. He may come in the guise of an old man. He may come in the persona of a noble old king. He does represent the past. He is moving towards death. It will be time for him to let go of his power. But it's not time yet. He's still holding on. And imagine that on the other side of the bank, there is another figure. And this is Horus, the young king. He may come as a falcon, which is his animal totem. He may come as a young man, a youth, perhaps a young king. He is the future. He is the new energy that is coming in. And the connection between these two is you. You have these two beings within yourself. You feel them every time you breathe in and you breathe out. And take a moment now to focus on your breathing, to feel that inhale, the expansion of your lungs, and to feel the exhale, the contraction of your lungs. And imagine that these two energies, these two beings, are coming closer to you until they stand on either side of you. And they send their energy toward you. And take a moment first to feel the energy of the old King Sobek. Sometimes he shows up as a crocodile-headed god. He's a reptilian brain in some expressions of ourselves, the part of us that doesn't want to let go, that needs to keep us alive so we don't die. We're programmed to fear death. We're programmed to fear letting go. And feel his energy. And there is a wisdom there too, a knowledge and experience that comes with living a long time. And allow yourself to reflect on the places within yourself where you don't want to let go. Whether it's because of fear or doubt, fear that something new won't replace it, whatever it might be, let yourself touch into that place where there is a resistance to change. And imagine now that you can tune in and be touched by the energy that stands on the other side of you, which is Horus, the young king. That you can feel his enthusiasm, his hopefulness, his belief and insistence in change, his great desire for something new, his desire to have his turn, to manifest the things that he wants to manifest, the newness of life. And feel his energy communicating with you now. And allow yourself now to feel these two energies, Sobek the old king on one side of you, Horus the young king on the other side of you, coming together and meeting within you, creating a simultaneous experience of expansion and contraction within you. And I'm going to be quiet for a couple of minutes and let these two wise beings, wise in different ways, but they both carry great depth of wisdom. Allow them to commune with each other within you. Allow them to communicate with you by being in simultaneous relationship with each other. Take a nice deep breath and know that within the inhale lies the exhale. Exhale fully and know that within the exhale lies the inhale. And go on a journey with Sobek and Horus. Experience within yourself the reconciliation of the opposites. You are joined now by Isis, Queen Mother of Heaven, she who is with us through every process of transformation and change. She has been with you throughout this entire year, and she is with you now. She wraps her rainbow wings around you, and she anchors within you this simultaneous experience of expansion and contraction. She wants you to know that as you release that which no longer serves, you make space and give birth to the next right thing. This is the reconciliation of the opposites. The struggle is over. You can relax into her arms, into her wings, and let go and allow the transformation to happen. Nice deep breath. Exhaling fully. I invite you over the next 2 weeks to stay in touch with this simultaneous experience of expansion and contraction. Anchor it in your body by going out and looking in the night sky. Sobek and Horus are talking to each other. They're supporting each other. They are making their cooperation a gift to each of us and a gift to our planet. Be willing to receive the gift. Nice deep breath. Come gently back into the room. Thank you. We will talk again.